Good morning. I hope you're all well. Thank you for joining today's forecasting webinar. This session will be recorded. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A section and I'll answer them at the end. If you are watching the recording of this session, you can email support@fathomhq.com. My name is Shivani and I am a business development representative at Fathom. I help EMEA prospects and trialists utilize the functionality and discover the value of Fathom. Today's agenda is forecasting in Fathom. I will cover some research, unique features to Fathom, followed by the product demonstration. Following the demo, I'll cover how Fathom can support you via our certification, our support team who are available during UK hours, our daily webinars, and finally our onboarding and implementation program. We'll then conclude today's webinar with our Q&A. Prior to and whilst developing forecasting, the Fathom team conducted lots of market research with existing customers and prospects. This resulted in lots of valuable feedback, which helped us develop the forecasting product as it is today. We continually receive feedback from customers and trialists to continue to develop a best-in-class product. The past few years have been a difficult time for businesses, and forecasting in Fathom enables advisors to help their clients through tricky times and into periods of growth. Fathom forecasts 36 months into the future. It is transparent and auditable. You can do sensitivity analysis with our business roadmap for your clients through the use of micro forecasts and scenarios. Micro forecasts are what we call a self-contained set of P&L and balance sheet movements that will aggregate to your wider forecast. In simpler terms, these are one-off business events that you can layer on top of your main forecast. The business roadmap is where I just mentioned all the micro forecasts can be viewed. For example, if you would like to hire 3 new employees and you want to know when the best time to do that is, this feature enables you to do so whilst keeping in mind key metrics such as cash and profitability. As you'll see later on in the live demo, you can drag and drop these individual micro forecasts to adjust the timing to ensure that there is enough working capital to fund the micro forecast in question. In Fathom, you can have unlimited scenarios. You can advise your clients on different scenarios that may arise and visualize their respective outcomes in a fan chart, as you can see on the screen. I'll now proceed with the product demonstration. So for those of you who are new to Fathom, this is the home page. And if you're already an existing customer or trialist, you may be familiar with this layout already. For today's purpose, I will be using Croydon coffee roasters, but just to show you how we set up forecasting in Fathom, I'll be using Forecastless Co. So clicking into forecasting now. So this is what it will look like when you go to set up your forecast. Clicking on Let's Get Started. So these are the 3 ways Fathom can create your forecast. Starting from right to left, link to existing budget. So in settings, step 1, update data. If you have uploaded a budget, whether that's from Excel, Xero or QuickBooks, we can base your forecast off of your budget. So that is one option. The second is quick start forecast. So this will take your historical actuals and create a line of best fit. And the last one is custom forecast. So this is creating a forecast from scratch. It takes a few minutes longer, but again, it's pretty much the same process. One thing I would like to mention is kind of despite which option you choose to set up your forecast, you are not bound by that decision. So for example, if I chose link to budget, the kind of default value would be linked to budget. However, you can automatically change that when you create your forecast. So I'll showcase that in just a moment. So value rules over here, what we can see is how we forward project the values in the P&L. So clicking into this, on the right hand side, we've got quite a few to choose from. So as I mentioned, if you chose link to budget, that would be the default rule. However, you can change this. Next, we have formula and drivers. So this is a mathematical way to create your forward projection of your P&L. So for example, with my coffee shop, I might choose formula and drivers. And I, for example, may state, I expect to sell X number of coffee cups in a month at cost Y. So I can say X times Y and forward project that. And I can also change that for different periods. Constant and growing. So for example, now lockdown has ended, my coffee shop's open now. So I'm hoping to see kind of an increase in revenue. Things are back to normal. Also Christmas is coming up. So I hope to see an increase in revenue with maybe a percentage increase of 1 or 2%. Then I can link to previous periods. So it's exactly what it says it is. It uses values from previous periods. And again, you can add an optional increase or decrease. And then lastly, smart prediction. So that's just a statistical analysis of your historical actuals. And again, you can include seasonal adjustments. Next, we have our timing profiles. So this dictates what impact it has on the balance sheet. So for example, with maybe office rent, you may pay monthly, you may pay quarterly or annually. So you have the option to filter the date. Then you can also add different months. So for example, you may pay rent 50% in 1 month, 20% in the next, and 30 in the next. So you can spread out your cash timing profile, and as long as that equates to 100%, you can apply that to any of the chart of accounts. So again, value rules and timing profiles can be applied to all the accounts you see listed here. The next is default account. So again, you're able to choose what you would like certain accounts to be linked to. Next, we have tax. So I'm sure many of you pay taxes. So we have VAT, income tax, corporation tax, any tax that essentially affects your business. You can apply here. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you're not bound by whatever you set up. So if you don't choose custom forecast as your initial way of creating your forecast, once you've set it up, you can go into settings again and change all of this, but I will demonstrate that in a moment. Next, we have loans and depreciation. So this just recognizes kind of short-term and long-term debt and any depreciation accounts associated with assets. So you have the option to choose that here. It's, as we can see, has already recognized some long-term debt from my financial data. Just going back to my demo company now. So if I go into Croydon Coffee Roasters, so there are quite a few things to note on this initial page that we see here. In the top right-hand corner, you can filter for different periods. So here we've got month, quarterly, and annually, rolling from November. Then we've got our profit and loss balance sheet, drivers, and cash flow. So these are kind of the main forecast tabs. And then on the left-hand side, we have our micro forecast, our business roadmap, and scenarios. So as I mentioned in the presentation, I'll get to those in a moment, but just something to be wary of. On the bottom here, we have quick metrics. So this immediately tells us any change on kind of our value rules or our cash timing profile will be shown here. And what you can do is you can have up to 5 metrics in Fathom. So you can also set thresholds for those. And we can see that, for example, with my cash and equivalents for April, I've set a £1 monthly threshold. So anything that falls below that will appear in a red box. And the same with my operating profit. So we can see kind of up until February that I am below the threshold. Clicking into my revenue line now. So here we can see kind of the little micro forecasts that affect my baseline for food. But just clicking into this, so As I just showed you, we have our value rules and cash timing profiles. Just to reiterate, so clicking in, starting from May 2016, actually let's do a new rule. So again, I'm currently using smart prediction, but again, I have the option to change this, and I'm not bound by this rule. So for example, I might have smart prediction for my food. I might have a completely different rule for my baseline, constant and growing for my baseline over here. And I can also change it month to month. So for example, for December, I might have smart prediction, and then maybe from March, I want to override that and say I want constant and growing. So you have the ability to change it both kind of on the y-axis and the x-axis as well. Next, we have our cash timing profile. So as I mentioned, you can spread the cash timing profile across as many months relevant. And then we've got a preview over here. So this is just a nice little add-on to be able to see one, the value rule on the left-hand side, and two, the payment spread, and directly what accounts are being affected underneath. So any tax that you may have, for example, as well will appear here. Next, we have our balance sheet. So over here, we've got our cash on hand, and we can see the opening and closing balance here. And any kind of journals or schedules you require can also be added in this section. What we can see on the left-hand side as well are all the micro forecasts that are currently affecting my baseline. So we can see when they start, how much they kind of are, but to really see this in greater detail, clicking on this magnifying glass here, I can click into it and see all the accounts between my opening and closing balance, as well as my journals that have been added. I can also add a journal and schedule in the top right-hand corner over here. Next, we have drivers. So as I mentioned, for example, earlier, maybe to calculate my coffee revenue, I might say the cost to the customer multiplied by number of cups of coffee sold. And then I can, in my value rule over here, select, if I just flip to merchandise, I can change this to a formula or driver. If I type in the variable that I would like to select, which is my cost to consumer, maybe I expect to sell something reasonable, maybe 1,000 cups of coffee a month, probably more. Save changes. And then this will, when I click create rule, that will all update. Lastly, we have our cash flow. So everything we see here is derived from our P&L and balance sheet. And again, just nice to be able to see kind of 36 months into the future, the forward projection of all of these values. Moving on now to micro forecasts. So as I mentioned, this is a self-contained set of P&L and balance sheet movements. In Fathom, you can have up to 50 active micro forecasts. So for example, if you are looking to hire a new employee, maybe replace some inventory or purchase an asset, you have a few marketing campaigns appearing, then you can map all of these out. And the place to view all of your micro forecasts will be in the business roadmap over here. So you can model out your return on investment for a particular purchase, for example, and then you can see when you get your cash in hand is positive, and in theory, kind of when your investment has paid for itself. So noting the cash on hand here, this is just my normal forecast. So as I mentioned, what I can do is I can drag and drop this, and then I immediately see that in January now I've fallen below threshold, whilst the kind of rest of the year is looking on the upward trend for my cash on hand, but just moving that back so you can see kind of the change. So maybe it is the best time to take it out in January, because I then don't fall below threshold. What we kind of do on top of micro forecast, so whilst this is the main forecast, you're also able to have unlimited scenarios. So I guess particularly with COVID, if you're in the UK, then Brexit might be also affecting your business. So you have the ability to create unlimited scenarios, and what you can do within these scenarios is apply specific micro forecasts to them. So for example, if I apply my best case scenario, we can quickly see how all my cash on hand almost tripled. Everything is kind of on the upward trend. Another example might be my investment is secured. So right now, I have an investment starting in July, but my April and May figures are looking below threshold. So maybe if I secure it slightly earlier, then I can see that April and May are, or March and April are looking a lot better. My change in cash and equity, whilst is below threshold, again is looking slightly more positive. So being able to map out these scenarios, especially from an advisory point of view, is particularly useful when advising your clients and kind of discussing different scenarios and different variables that you can chop and change according to kind of their business and what they're hoping to do. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning regarding forecast settings, so here a kind of newly released feature is our forecast value audit. So here we've got lots of value rules, timing profiles, and what you can see in a spreadsheet is how you've changed those value rules month on month and for different charts of accounts. So downloading the spreadsheet, you'll be able to see an overview of what you've applied when and to what account. Again, you can also download a spreadsheet. So this will just show you your P&L, balance sheet and cash flow statement and your projected values for up to 36 months. What we find is a lot of users who are in their trial period kind of delete their forecast and create it in many different ways. And yeah, just play around with kind of the functionality of Fathom and the different value rules we have. As I mentioned, accounts, again, these are all selected, can be done at the beginning if you choose custom forecast. If not, you can change all of these drivers here. And then we have tax. So again, any tax that you want to apply to specific accounts, you can do that in this section over here. So that is the main forecasting section I would like to demonstrate today. And as I should have mentioned earlier, is that anything you create in forecasting is fully integratable into reporting. So for example, if you're doing management reporting packs or advisory tool kind of reporting, then in Fathom, you are able to include everything we just saw into a report. So to kind of showcase that, for example, so you may already have kind of a template that you're using to roll out to your clients, but you can also add on top of that. So we have 2 forecast analysis predefined templates, which you can use as a basis for your forecasting reporting. But if you've already got kind of your perfect report, then what you can do is create a report. For today's purpose, I'll be using a template, and I'm just going to choose a monthly performance report. I'm scrolling down all the way to the bottom. So just to showcase this, if you haven't already played around in reporting, we've got quite a few placeholders here. So on the left-hand side, we've got text, charts, we've got hundreds of charts to choose from, tables and financials. So here we can white label our report. So if you uploaded a logo in settings, then you can customize your report. We've got lots of text to view, some nice KPI analysis tools. And again, if you've done the trial or an existing customer, hopefully you should be familiar with kind of what these all look like. But there are just a few that I would like to showcase for today. So if I change my section to landscape, just so I can fit a bit more, call it forecasting. So one particular chart I'd like to show is, for example, revenue for this financial year. So I can edit this, and what I can do here is go to advanced settings, show future projection, and show my forecast. So I'm choosing my main forecast, but I also have the ability to choose different scenarios as well. So As I mentioned, I've got my best case, worst case investment. So maybe just mapping out that one investment that I demonstrated. I can apply these changes and maybe I can change that custom range as well. So rather than focusing on the last 6 months, focus on the last 3 and kind of the future 9. And I can apply those changes there. I can also add some other variables. So maybe gross profit, for example, cash and equivalents. And again, I can allow a future projection for these to be able to kind of compare them. There we go. Oh, that looks slightly messy. Sorry, gonna remove this one. And then what we can also do here is change the chart type. So for example, if you like a bar chart instead of a line chart, you can apply that there just to show you. It doesn't look too great, but that is how you would kind of customize it even further. The next chart, rather table and financial I'd like to show is the financial trends table. So if I choose this financial year, for example, if I edit this, currently I'm looking up until October, but what I want to do is show my forecast. So at the moment I'm looking at current financial year. Maybe I'll customize that and instead I'll show the next 9 months versus maybe the last 2 or 1 even actually. There we go. And then I can also change that level of detail. So again, if you've used Fathom before, hopefully you know that we can collapse headings and subheadings to show the most level of detail. And you can also allow report viewers to export this to Excel. So for those of you who also love Excel, this is a good way to kind of showcase this just within a spreadsheet if you aren't inviting users into Fathom. The next table I would like to show, so if I insert a new component, again, what I can see is I have the choice of forecasting tables and financials. And what I can do is show a balance sheet layer detail. And right now I'm looking at my baseline for my cash on hand. I'm not actually too bothered about July to September, so I can change that maybe again to 1 month, show future 9 months, and I can also change this metric. So whilst I'm looking on cash on hand at the moment, I can maybe change the metric that I am kind of monitoring in this report. Again, allow users to export to Excel, and the way to export to Excel would be using kind of this little cloud in the bottom right hand corner of the table. Again, another table to show is in forecasting as well. So here we can really focus on specific micro forecasts and be able to kind of judge how, for example, this barista hire will look. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the direct impact of hiring an employee, what I hopefully expect to see in terms of return on investment. So whilst I'm paying their salary, hopefully they will be bringing in more money for the company and kind of trying to forecast their sales in terms of coffee and merchandise as well. The last table I would like to show is assumptions, the assumptions report. So sorry, whilst I forgot to mention this in the forecasting section, I can quickly go back to that. But essentially, as I mentioned, anything you create in forecasting is fully integratable. So for specific periods or maybe on a specific chart of account in forecasting, when you go to the value rule underneath, you can add a note. And if you're sharing this report with your colleagues, for example, you may have one specific kind of reason as to why you changed the value rule for that period. So being able to kind of communicate that with your colleagues, you can do so. So what I did is in my revenue, I increased the value rule because I expect that kind of over Christmas and New Year, I'm expecting an increase in revenue. Maybe I've created some limited edition coffee. that I am sharing, and hope that my revenue is higher as a result. Next, we have another kind of note that I added. So I've got a supermarket partnership beginning. And whilst, of course, you invest into partnerships, you also expect to see the ROI. And so if my maybe little new coffee brand is in supermarkets, I hope to kind of see an increase in coffee revenue as well. So being able to add these comments within forecasting and then be able to include them in reports is one, not only a brilliant feature, but two, just enables you to kind of see for specific accounts maybe why there are certain discrepancies or changes. The last thing I'd like to highlight in particular is our layouts function. So on the bottom of this left-hand sidebar, we've got layouts. So whilst, again, you might have already created your perfect report, what Fathom offers is kind of a set of different charts. So clicking into forecasting here, I might choose cash flow analysis, and I can just drag and drop that in. And what that enables me to see is my cash flow for my forecast. I can see different periods. I can also edit this. So maybe I don't want to see my projects. So if I remove that and then maybe add my worst case scenario, currently looking at the financial year, but again, I can change these periods. So rather than focusing on the past, let's see kind of in the future what I'm expecting to see in terms of different scenarios. And again, I can highlight current periods, change this. So maybe I want to focus on quarterly instead, and see kind of the trend up until 2024. So that is another example of kind of how we also offer other more specific / custom charts. Again, you can download this as a PDF. So this whole report can be emailed out to your colleagues. You also have the option of inviting users into Fathom. So in the top right-hand corner, there is no limitation on how many users are invited into Fathom. And you can set user permissions as well. So for example, there are some reports you maybe want for internal use only, in which case that would be for your eyes only. But once they have been published over here and you have invited a client to view the report, they will be able to see that. One thing I'd also like to note is you have the ability to kind of speak to your clients through Fathom. For example, in the right-hand corner here of my published report, I have some comments. So here I've commented, it's nice to see a revenue increase from the previous month. And again, just enables kind of having a chat, maybe outside of the email chain, but being able to kind of use the full functionality of Fathom as well. Just want to pop back quickly to forecast to highlight where you can include notes in a assumptions report. So as I mentioned, in the right hand side of value rules, if I just click new rule, if I add a note here, the notes that we saw in the report, if I type anything here, then I can include that into the assumptions report, which is what we just saw a moment ago. You can also apply the scenarios directly to this main grid. So what we saw here was the business roadmap directly applied here, but what I can also do is on my main forecast grid, using the same speech bubble that we see for scenarios over there, is apply best case scenario. And then again, watching those quick metrics, we can quickly see kind of the changes on my cash on hand, maybe worst case as well. It's not looking too great, maybe in July and next October. So being able to kind of future plan for that and combat those and kind of get ahead of anything that might be falling below threshold really enables you to kind of do that in Fathom. So that is forecasting in Fathom. If I just pop back over to my slide now. So today we focused on forecasting with Fathom, and what you can do is also get a fully integrated advisory system. So using our analysis reporting, benchmarking and consolidations tool. Clients' needs vary based on their business type, their industry, organization size, and understanding of what kind of services are available. Fathom's product flexes with you according to these different client needs and how you service them. So, for example, clients with multiple entities will require accurate and clear breakdowns of individual and consolidated results, with actuals maybe compared against budget performance. Whereas a franchise client might be interested in benchmarking their various locations to compare and rank performance. And a startup client might be interested in reports that visually highlight key cash and profitability KPIs and be able to forecast potential scenarios into the future. So as I mentioned earlier, we have an extensive amount of resources in terms of support. So our Fathom certification course is now CPD accredited. It is a 6-hour self-paced learning course covering the main functionality of Fathom. In terms of our technical on-demand support, so our support team work UK hours and have very prompt response times. If you're an existing customer, I'm sure you've already spoken to them and seen how amazing the support is. You can get in touch with them in the chat function in the bottom right-hand corner of your account, or you can also email support@fathomhq.com. For firms who are planning to add a decent number of clients onto Fathom, we offer an account management service and implementation roadmap. And for firms who also require kind of deep dive training, we can also provide that. So thank you to everyone who was able to join the webinar today. I hope you found the session useful. As I mentioned, you will receive a recording of this webinar. If you do have any questions, you can book a discovery call with me. My email is stated on the slide. You can also email support@fathomhq.com. And lastly, if you haven't taken out a trial already, Fathom offers a 14-day free trial in which you can kind of use the full functionality of Fathom. You'll have access to our support team. You can attend our daily webinars. So there are lots of extensive resources. And on our website, we also have a blog if you're interested in reading that. I'll leave the session open for a few minutes just to chat through some Q&As. But again, thank you very much for joining and enjoy the rest of your day. Sorry, give me a moment whilst I read through them. So thank you, Al Faris, for your question. How can I use drivers in a formula? So just to go back to my forecast. So what we can do here in drivers is you create a driver, for example, as I mentioned, calculating number of cups of coffee or the amount of coffee sold. So I can say number of cups of coffee, and that's monthly. I'll choose that. It doesn't need a category, and I'm going to choose a number. What I can then do is apply a value rule. So maybe I expect to sell one, or let's say, 2,000 cups of coffee a month, and I hope to increase that by 2%. I can then create that value rule, and I am selling my coffee at £3 a cup. So if I go back to my P&L, what I can do here in my drinks revenue is go to my driver. I can replace this rule with a formula and driver. And then when I type at, I can select my drivers. So I can say cups of coffee for this month multiplied by going back to my drivers, cost to the consumer for this month, save changes, create rule, and we can quickly see that has updated now using the driver formula that I just inputted. I hope that answers your question. To the next one. Sorry, there are quite a few. If you have, so thank you, Jonathan, for a question. If you have a consolidation company, does the individual company forecast roll into the consolidated company? So consolidations in Fathom work pretty easily. So what you'll have is all your entities in Fathom, then you create a consolidated group. What happens is everything regarding kind of analysis, reporting, chart of accounts, KPIs, that all aggregates to your consolidated group. And you can also report at the consolidated level. However, with forecasting, it does not. So whatever you create in the underlying entity in forecasting doesn't aggregate to the consolidated group. But if you have more questions around that, or you would like to see kind of a mini tutorial, we also have some support videos that can help answer that. But we can do a follow-up after. Sorry, just scrolling again. How are the best case, so thank you all for your question. How are the best case and worst case scenarios calculated? So it's not automated by Fathom. This is entirely up to you how you create them. Just to showcase that. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you can create a scenario and just to show, for example, let's say marketing projects. I have a similar scenario already, but what I can do is I have up to 50 active micro forecasts. I don't today, I have about 10. But what I can do is select all the relevant ones that I want to be applied to my particular scenario. So as it's a marketing project, I'm going to select all my campaigns, create scenario. And then what I can do is I can see it's already been applied, and I can also go to the business roadmap and see kind of on my cash on hand what the impact is. Maybe with my supermarket partnership, if I bring that slightly forward, we can see it helps, but doesn't help a huge amount. And then maybe my Christmas campaign, actually this year I'm going to decide not to invest. So I can simply untick that, and we can quickly see that it's removed kind of the months where I'm falling below threshold. So you have the ability to add micro forecasts in and out of your scenarios. If I wanted to reapply it, I can just simply select it again, and that has now been reapplied to that scenario. So forecasting a consolidated company that has subsidiaries with different functional currencies. So in Fathom, you can consolidate a multi-currency consolidated group. What will happen is, say you have one entity in dollars, one in pounds, and one in euros. What I can do is I can consolidate at a group level, but in one presentational currency. So Fathom uses a third-party vendor called Open Exchange to for our exchange rates. However, you also have the ability to upload your own, and you can report in your presentational currency, but all the underlying entities remain in their currency that the entity was set up in. But if you do have more questions around this, you can contact our support team. They can kind of help you with that. And we also have some help articles. But again, we have lots of resources and kind of video training regarding a lot of the questions that have been answered by my colleague and I. So please don't hesitate to ask. if you would like some sort of video. We also do have a consolidations webinar running on Thursday. So if you'd like to sign up, we can send you the link. And if you're unable to attend the session, again, you will receive a recording. So thank you very much to everyone who has joined today. I am going to end the webinar now. As I mentioned, if you have joined live, then that's great, but you will receive a recording anyway. And if you're watching this session recorded, then you can email support@fathomhq.com. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Take care.